The Lost Mermaid-Chapter 6. Though a few weeks passed, the strange tension between Dad and me never eased. I woke up on a Saturday morning as sunlight poured in, promising a better day. I hopped off my sofa and ran outside. The porch seemed to be my favorite place these days, the only quiet place I could be alone with my thoughts. The sun was rising over the mountain, casting rays of feathery pink and orange across the sky. Only a few wisps of cloud hung above. To our relief, the water was retreating. Even though Ferndale was still a mess, the roads were clear enough that school would start the next day. It would take months for the water to go back to its normal level, though. After making breakfast, I got dressed and headed outdoors. The ground was muddy and squelched underneath my feet, but at least it wasn't just water anymore. I relished the feeling of being outside after weeks of being cooped up in the house. The breeze ruffled my hair and the sun felt warm on my skin. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, my feet itching to run. Giving into the impulse, I took off. My thoughts fell away as I ran away from everything troubling me. I ended up where the fence divided our property from the neighbors, as far away from the house as I could get. As I leaned against it, breathing deeply, I heard my name called and tensed, turning. Beyond the fence, Jared Shelley waved to me from beside his father's horses. I waved back hesitantly, which he took as an invitation to come over. I straightened up as he hopped the fence. "Hey, Julie. I heard your mom had the baby," he said casually. I felt weirdly nervous talking to him. Suddenly, I was aware of how ghastly I looked. My clothes were wrinkled, my feet muddy, and my hair pulled back in a disheveled braid. My cheeks were probably red and splotchy after running too. Why did I care about this? Jared had known me forever. He'd definitely seen me look worse. But still, I liked to look presentable. "Oh, you heard?" I asked, smoothing out my clothes and hair self-consciously while doing my best to match his light tone. He nodded, leaning against the fence. "What's the baby's name?" "Benny." "It's a boy?" Jared asked. "You wanted a girl, didn't you?" My head snapped up in surprise, my gaze meeting his. "How did you know? Can he read minds or something?" He always seemed to know what I was thinking. Somehow he always understood too. Ever since we were young, he'd actually paid attention to what I said, and never seemed to get bored like other guys. He shrugged, shoving his hands in his pockets. I just figured, well, you're right. I did want a sister, but I'm happy to have another brother. I eyed him, hoping he didn't notice how my voice had darkened at the word, another's he probably had. He had 2 younger sisters. I just had so many brothers. I didn't have to be totally fine with it, did I? "I bet you're helping your mom a lot," he said as a horse neighed. He glanced over at it, frowning. "Well, I've got to get back." He smiled. "I guess I'll see you later, Julie." "Yeah, okay. Bye." I didn't mean to sound so dismissive, but he didn't seem to notice. He jumped the fence and jogged back to his chores. I found myself heading in the direction of the pond. I wanted to see what things had washed up. My brothers had once found turquoise agates in the Eel River. Maybe I would find something beautiful too. When I got there, I noticed the pond was still twice its usual size. The large overhanging rock, which we usually used as a diving board, was completely underwater. Also, I could see that the outlet was obstructed by a tangle of redwood trees and debris. The water had cleared up enough that I could see the bottom of the pond easily. The middle was still a bit murky, but I could see the ground near the edges. Smooth stones lay below, swathed by pond fronds waving in the gentle currents. Bubbles swirled. I squinted, spotting something moving. There was definitely something there. Something odd. What was it? I leaned in, trying to catch a glimpse of the moving thing. But as I did, my foot slipped, and I slid into the pond with a splash. Shock froze me for a few moments, but I emerged from the water, sputtering. It was a good thing my brothers hadn't been there. I would never have heard the end of it. They would have teased me endlessly for falling in for no apparent reason. I coughed up pond water, gagging at the taste. The creature was probably hiding now. I silently cursed my clumsiness and stood up, shivering. The water came to my chest. Shaking out my soaked hair, I half swam, half trudged through the shallows, but paused when I felt something brush my foot. It wasn't seaweed. I knew the slippery texture of that. This was different. It was smoother than a river stone and curled like a water snake. For a moment, I feared it was an eel from the river, and I froze, peering down. A face stared back at me, pale and smooth. I jumped, startled. In a flash, it disappeared. I stood frozen, trying to figure out what happened. What in the world was it? I needed another look. As I stood there in the freezing January air, my mind was reeling from what I had just witnessed. But as I pondered what I had seen, I realized something strange. The water wasn't freezing me. Without further thought, I took a deep breath and plunged into the water to search for the mysterious creature. The way cleared, revealing a maze of seaweed. I pushed through, my gaze snagging on a form floating a few feet away. It looked human, but had a glorious tail glittering with aquamarine scales. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw her, a real-life mermaid, right here in my pond. I had always thought they were just creatures of myth and legend. But there she was, swimming gracefully in the water. For a moment, I wondered if I was imagining things. But as she twirled around and looked straight at me with her dazzling green eyes, I knew she was real. My amazement quickly turned to fear, though. What did the mermaid want? Was she dangerous? I had always feared the unknown, and here was something completely beyond my comprehension. I couldn't help but feel apprehensive as I watched her swim closer. Despite my initial feelings of foreboding, I was completely in awe of her. She was beautiful and mysterious, like something out of a fairy tale. I felt a sense of longing to know more about her and her world. Was this just my imagination playing tricks on me? No, there she was, right in front of me. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized I was face to face with a creature that I had only read about. My eyes widened as I took her in. My chest screamed for air, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from her mesmerizing, swirling tresses. Her gleaming fins swished in the water. Woven seaweed wrapped around her shoulders and down her waist, where it met her greenish-golden tail. Jeweled armbands adorned her upper arms. Finally, my lungs could no longer take it. I resurfaced and gasped for air. My chest burned and my mind raced. Mermaids are real? And there is one in my pond? I didn't know whether I should be excited or terrified. I had to be hallucinating. This couldn't be true. Despite my amazement, I also felt a twinge of fear. What did the mermaid want? Was it dangerous? I tried to keep a safe distance, unsure of what its intentions might be. She seemed to sense my apprehension and smiled at me reassuringly, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. As I swam, watching the mermaid gracefully swim, my emotions were in turmoil. I felt both awestruck and fearful, unable to fully comprehend the fantastical creature that had entered my world. I waded to the bank and sat down, bewildered. The gritty sand and pebbles clung to my feet as I stared into the water. Closer to the middle of the pond, the mermaid emerged, looking at me. I wasn't hallucinating. She was real. Diving back in, we swam toward one another. I leaned closer, a bit nervous, and gave her a hesitant wave. She smiled, but her face looked desperate. Why? I couldn't help but notice her complexion was as pallid as the morning mist that hovered over the pond. It seemed she could barely lift her arms. She tried signaling something with her hands, but I couldn't understand. I blinked in confusion as she signed it over and over. Then, dropping her hands, she gave up, as if her arms were too heavy. Instead, She closed her eyes and mouthed unintelligible words. 2 words slid into my mind, cold and slippery, sounding foreign and unfamiliar. I concentrated, straining to understand. The words grew louder until they reverberated through my mind. Saw-wah, saw-wah-wah, echoed over and over again until they seemed to blend into one word. Saltwater.